So, greetings and welcome to all the viewers of yet another episode of the interview series, The Global Resolve. It's a talk show where we invite thought leaders and influencers from across the globe and we get their perspective on mediation, which to me is the most apt ADR tool for dispute resolution. We straight away would like to start with today's episode, for which we have with us Mr. Anil Khaitan. He is the chairman and managing director of Sunil Healthcare Limited. It's a leading pharma company in India. We would love to hear his thoughts and suggestions as we get started. So welcome, Mr. Khaitan, to the Global Resolve. And if you permit, I would straight away jump to the questions.
Yes, we can, please.
Great. Thank you. So, sir, as per you, what exactly is mediation from your point of view? And do you think it is just a negotiation or there is something else to it?
Well, to me, mediation today, a dispute between two parties, to make it simpler, and mediated by an able mediator who is very good at man management skills, who is also a good psychologist to a certain extent. Because during mediation, in every mediation or in a negotiation I've seen, comes an inflection point. And that inflection point is the art of the mediator to know that now it's time to hit with the hammer and get the whole thing through. I'm not saying it happens in all, but in a lot of mediations I've seen that inflection point comes. And in case everybody misses that, then it gets into a prolonged mediation. But still, getting back to your main question, as I understand that it is an acceptance of a resolvement of a dispute by the two disputing parties, which have been sort of brought together by the mediator, who has been accepted by both the parties. Otherwise, you can't have mediation. Sure. Both parties have accepted the mediator. They have opened all their cards, and some have given, some have taken. So by give and take, both sides are happy. Mediator has resolved the issue, because ultimately what happens today? Today, you take a dispute. Right from when mankind was born, right from Mahabharata till now, there are disputes every day. And there are all kinds of disputes, because when you have human beings, you will have disputes.
Agreed, sir.
You can have a domestic dispute, a commercial dispute, a friendship dispute or whatever. Now, what does human being want? Ultimately, everybody wants a resolvement of the dispute. Now, as the society evolved in the 18th century, in the 19th century, in the 20th century, technology advanced, things got more advanced. People indulged in a lot of malpractices in various aspects, be it into your social sort of a ecosystem, be it into a commercial ecosystem. You have the black sheeps, and black sheep galore amongst all nations, which basically lead to disputes of all kinds. Now, what happened was that to solve all that, slowly, the whole legal system was developed by each and every country, right from maybe the Roman Empire, or if not before that. That's so some kind of balance, some kind of a discipline, if you like, is maintained in the society. So that was the evolvement of the legal system. So what happened, that we human beings got conditioned and sucked into that legal system so much. And that legal system became more and more polished. It became much more complicated as the world evolved, as the world became technologically advanced, and as number of complications. Now let's assume today, 30 or 40 years ago, we could not be thinking of a cyber security law,
right,
or a cyber security act, because cyber security was not a concern. But now it is a concern. It could be a major cause of dispute. So you got to have a legal system for that dispute. So see, legal systems you will have to have. Because when mediation fails, then what?
Then what?
Because
right.
The legal system does justice. Mediation does resolution. They resolve issues, as you had also when we were discussing informally. Right. So this is my distinction between resolution and. So if I of my problems, say if I have a land dispute with my brother, right, and that land dispute, rather than getting settled in the court and washing a dirty linen of the family,
absolutely,
in public, in confidentiality, brothers can give and take. For instance, the Ambani brothers.
Agree.
It was all mediation and dispute over, because, like you said, and we've seen Supreme Court, High Court, now they advise after hearing the case prolonged that why don't you people go and do mediation? Because the judges also feel that both sides are right to a certain extent.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So in whose side to give what judgment, why don't they sit and settle it amongst themselves? And the other major thing which we must realize is that mediation is much faster. You resolve an issue much faster than going to the courts. And secondly, which is the most important, is your legal costs. They go absolutely vertically southwards. So you save so much on legal costs. You save so much on negativity time in making papers and documents and annexures and so on and so forth, which the lawyers demand, which they have to present in the court. And the courts, and the very fact the parliament is coming out with a bill, it shows that with such huge amount of cases in the sessions in the lower court and in high and Supreme Court, as it said, at the present rate of disposal, it will take 300 years. So with that, so many cases already pending, I think it's time now that we send much lesser cases to the courts and try to resolve matters amongst ourselves to the extent possible.
Agree.
And the courts are always there. And the government should legislate now in this bill that no high court will admit any case till it goes through the process of mediation.
Agree. Absolutely.
Then, once that is made into a law, then immediately the infrastructure of mediators have to be provided, because there will be a huge demand.
Yeah.
There the government has to work out in which way they will get the quality people who have a name, or maybe a lot of people who have also retired. Say, for instance, a good name comes to my mind is Mr. Deepak Parekh.
Right.
He has retired from HDFC. So such people who have retired from active life, maybe they could be approached.
Absolutely.
With their maturity, with their knowledge, because a mediator must also have knowledge of the subject.
Right.
Because the mediator must be able to do the homework. If he has become a mediator, where I feel mediation is the first preference, much more preferred than arbitration, because arbitration is much more legal sounding.
Absolutely.
Than mediation. The only thing here in mediation is to find a mediator.
Right.
To be looked at as to how parties, because a lot of mediation can, in India, we know we get done through a known personality.
Exactly. That's true.
Which both parties know, and it's done. But that would not be the case when mediation is widespread.
Right.
Then you might need good professionals.
Absolutely.
So that's the time that the people of India must have people on call. And another issue here we have to consider is mediation at the village and the tier 2 and tier 1 city level. Sorry,
right.
tier is the local language.
Hmm.
The mediation in local language.
Sure.
Because there are zillions of disputes at that level.
Agreed.
And people involved in the dispute don't understand English.
Sure. Right.
So that could be another aspect through which it could be done. And as slowly mediation develops, I'm telling you, an idea just came to my mind that it could also get into e-mediation.
Right. So which is happening already. Online mediation.
Okay, that's a great idea. So sure. These are my initial comments.
Got that, sir. So great. So I think in that answer of yours, you've actually given me answers for the next few questions also. And that was great. And I actually am going to pick up like in a few very important points you said. So one is, it's a lot about human psyche. So mediator definitely needs to be like, a good psychologist to the extent, or at least the maturity, the experience and the exposure of life. So he understands what is not being told. In mediations, my experience tells me that, when we sit between the parties, there is a lot which needs to be understood, reading between the lines, because that's the iceberg theory, because what you get to see is only the tip of the iceberg. And there's a whole lot of stuff which is like hidden. So I think that was very well said, important. So the skills of mediator will definitely be put to test, irrespective of the type of dispute, because you need to maintain that balance, which you of course rightly said. Now, another point which you made is excellent about the legal system, which had to evolve over the period to inculcate that discipline in the society. But somewhere I think what we have seen, it has become a trap rather than an enabler. So that is something I think we need to again find a right balance and let the mediation or a concept like mediation or negotiation be the first step before we move on. Yeah, sorry.
Here I would like to make a point. The government has realized this, and that is why they are bringing the bill.
Agreed.
But they want to break this nexus.
So you call it a nexus. So somewhere I think that is a statement.
This legal nexus, that when I have a case and the hearing is there and the judge doesn't come, but the lawyer still charges me.
Yeah.
Because, lawyer says, I have reserved that time for you, so that time you have to pay for. So I have to pay for that. So legal costs become humongously high. And it's really fraught with a lot of hole in the pockets.
So these kind of nuances, which in any case would be taken care of the moment there is an alternative getting prepared, and that's what brings to a question which I want to ask later, but I think it's important. Would you see the legal fraternity trying to become the gatekeeper of justice somewhere? Is that what kind of comes out to be when we see around?
Well, I wouldn't like to generalize the legal community in any kind of a slot. They're also human beings.
Yeah.
So I would say that it would be a hybrid. There'd be a lot of them who would be against mediation. They would feel that a court judgment is much more binding, and after mediation also they can say problems could reoccur. But if you have court judgment, you have that safety. So there, whatever the positives are there of a court judgment vis-a-vis a mediative judgment, they'll always be highlighted. But the fact about the cost of legal fees, the time taken by the Indian courts, all that will not be highlighted.
Agreed. And sir, also adding uncertainty to the same thing, the cost and the legal fees, but what about the uncertainty? You are never sure what
because today, like when I buy an equipment or when I bid for any tender, I have to give a performance guarantee.
Agreed.
But today a lawyer doesn't give me a performance guarantee.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Because a lawyer gets his fees whether I win or I lose. Right. He doesn't give me a guarantee.
Agreed.
So, I mean, that is a system, and I think there's no point talking.
Absolutely. Point taken. So that was
a waste of time. So I think that you will get lawyers who will encourage mediation. And these same lawyers, a lot of them, could also turn as mediators.
Agreed.
Which would be a great revenue source for them.
Absolutely.
Because in mediation also you have to see, and the government has to restrict, like they've restricted on the board, that you can't be a board of more than 10 companies or 20 companies. So similarly on mediation, that at one time, one person should not be able to take more than X number of mediation.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you can't do justice.
Absolutely, sir.
You will go mad and berserk. And then the fee structure of the mediators. That also, since the bill is there, I don't know, does the bill have the fee structure of the mediators?
So there is a reference to a mediation council, which eventually would definitely get involved because they speak about an institutional mediation. And the only concern is, though the bill speaks about institutional mediation, but if I were to kind of create a parallel in arbitration, though the government and everyone has been trying to push the institutional arbitration, but in India, currently 98% of the arbitrations, as per many studies done, are ad hoc arbitrations, which means they are not institutional, which means you have to appoint your own arbitrator, and there is no institutional framework available. So from that perspective, even we are trying to push the institutional mediation, I think it's like, just overreach for now, because more important is let people get a taste of mediation first and let the institutions be set up. Infrastructure will take time. In the interim, if I don't have the taste of mediation, I would seldom go to institution, right? So those things, I think, let it happen in a kind of a sequence. So that was definitely important. You also mentioned kind of a mandatory mediation where high courts or other courts should be told or specifically asked to not accept a case unless until a person has gone through or tasted a mediation, even if it's a failed thing. So we are okay, at least, there is some awareness. So I think, yes, that's a good point where a carrot and stick approach should work, where you kind of incentivize people that, okay, you've mediated, you've tried for mediation. So at least, there is an attempt. So I think that is important. But another point you said of finding a mediator, it's slightly funny and we need to really find a solution. I interact with a lot of mediators, wannabe mediators who've been spending time, and they say it's very difficult to convince parties and stakeholders to really come forward and offer mediation. So there is a whole bunch out there who's waiting to be utilized, to be engaged, and to be tried out. And on the other hand, we have this issue or an inhibition whether, where we can go and pick up someone we like. So I think that is a bridge we need to provide somewhere. So that also
I have suggested a compulsory mediation. Otherwise, it will not happen.
Agreed.
Unless the entire legal system, and after the bill is passed, the government is convinced that mediation is far better.
Yeah.
Because government also knows the pain which people are going through with the present legal system, especially in terms of delays. We don't have problems in terms of justice. There, we have 21 for somebody, 19 for somebody.
Okay.
The problem is these delays, say section 138.
Yeah.
60% of the cases in lower courts are section 138.
Right.
Finance minister announced that they are going to decriminalize 138, but still make it strong enough. Something like, I'm giving an extreme example, that if your check bounces, then the bank can freeze your account. The moment banks freeze your account, you have to make the payment. Because this is in the benefit of the MSMEs today.
Right, absolutely.
MSMEs check bounce, they cannot fight in the court of law. They don't have the money because 138 takes 5 years, 10 years, and to fight against the big companies is not possible.
Agreed.
So to help out the MSMEs also, section 138 should be decriminalized but made enforceable. And here the banks are the best recourse to make it enforceable because everybody has a banker.
Agreed.
So the banker can exert the pressure either on signing authorities or whatever. A law can be framed. Because if you see today, historically, when we had no courts, today you take Mahabharata. Lord Krishna had gone as a mediator,
right,
as a Shanti Doot, only asking for 5 villages. That was also mediation.
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
And he had clearly said that if you accept, all the 5 Pandavas will accept because I have accepted.
Agreed.
So I have the full authority of the 5 brothers.
Right.
You accept, I will accept.
Right.
The Pandavas will accept.
Agreed.
It broke down, war happened.
Right.
Similarly, like that, there must have been scores of mediations done historically in India and in the world. A lot of them might have succeeded, a lot of them failed. So all the failed ones, ultimately what happened? They all went to war.
Right.
So now, symbolically speaking, here in today's world, instead of going to war, you will go to the court.
Agreed. Yeah. Sure.
After your mediation fails, you don't go on the battlefield, you go on the legal battlefield of the court. And another advantage will become that if you go to the court after mediation, the court has a lot of material with it. They have the insights of both the parties because all the mediation records are with the court. The stands of each party are with the court. Who said what, everything, so the judge has much more insight in the case to enable him to come to a better judgment. That was another point I thought.
Got that, sir. So great. And now quickly, couple of more questions. One is very important, which I normally ask everyone. Would you consider solution the same as a justice? Would, normally do we look at solutions for our disputes or we always want justice to be done? And would that be same in all the cases?
Well, again, that is totally human specific. Personally, I can only speak for myself. I look for.
Okay. And follow up, sorry. Yeah.
In my commercial dealings. And of course, there come certain times and certain events in your life where you just can't settle for everything.
Agreed.
Where you've got to stand up for something. If it's, say, against a principal issue of yours.
Right.
There, I think I would go for justice as to what my conscience says. This thing, and I'm not getting it, then I would rather go for justice. But so it's a hybrid, but I think justice would be a lower percentage and a day-to-day settlement, a much higher percentage, if you want to live a happy and a peaceful life.
and who would not do so? Absolutely, that kind of directs the favor towards mediation. So great, sir. Would you be willing to pay a lawyer his fee to prevent disputes? Do you think that's possible somehow?
Oh yes, I would.
And obviously, you think if you pay a fee to a lawyer to prevent dispute, they can do a better service to you?
Yes.
And that would mean a better drafting of clauses in the contract. And even if there has been a interpretation issue, let's do a harmonious interpretation. So we take away the smaller frictions and look at a larger objective. Okay.
Yes. So if the parties agree, okay, these two are our lawyers, let our lawyers sit down, the lawyers agree, let the lawyers settle. That is also a much it's nothing but a more legal and a professionalized mediation.
Absolutely.
And it's being mediated by professionals who know the subject.
Absolutely.
And who can make the agreement enforceable.
Absolutely. Agree. So only speak here would be.
It's not that other people can't, but I'm just saying that they'll have that little, edge of comma full stop.
Right.
So that there are no leakages in the tank.
Sure. So when we speak about enforcement, we are talking about a good settlement agreement whereby the parties are pretty clear as to who's to do what, and they are doing it by their own volition. So in the sense that they say, okay, we are ready, and then both the parties are happy. Great. So sir, last two questions. Post-COVID, when no one can be blamed for the disputes and failures because a lot of it happened because of force majeure, right, clauses. So can mediation be looked differently and favorably and be used to sort out the mess out, between us and, we move with time and we move forward? Do you think COVID has raised something?
Actually, Sanjeev, with all what I've said, mediation is applicable here also. Because post-COVID, whatever the disputes could be, say, between a shop and the mall owner regarding his rentals, a commercial dispute regarding rentals, it could be anything. But ultimately, we'll have to look forward, because you cannot drive a car by looking at your rear view mirror. You have to look at the main front view mirror and drive the car. So you've got to keep on moving rather than keep on looking back.
Absolutely. No, so that's a great point, because when we differentiate mediation with litigation, we always keep saying mediation is for what can be done henceforth, which is looking into the future. And litigation is always what we did, and hence we are fighting. So that's the clear, the differentiator we create. So the last question for you, what will be the takeaway for you, with these kind of discussions? What do you think is top two requirements where we can really make mediation a successful mechanism to be used by people? What are the impediments? I mean, if you've used and you figured out that something else can be done. So I heard mandatory mediation. I heard, can we get quality mediators, right? So those are a couple of things which I heard. But any top two which you would want to still specify as a suggestion as well?
The top two is, first is that the very fact that the bill is being made in Parliament, that makes this whole thing implementable now, because it has the total backing of the government of India.
Right.
So that bill should be having all the clauses for which, again, we don't have to go back to the government that you should change this and you should add this and you should delete this, to the extent possible. And so that bill should be having all the clauses for which, again, we don't have to go back to the government that you should change this and you should add this and you should delete this, to the extent possible. And thereafter, we should also see that government makes it mandatory for mediation first. there could be certain cases which will not go through mediation. There could be, I don't know, if they are saying maybe they could specify the value also. That anything below, let's say 1,000 crores, will go for mediation first. Anything above 1,000 crores, mediation is not necessary. They can come straight to the court. So on the nature of the seriousness, the government could also decide. But the whole idea is that the very fact the bill is coming, it will be very good for 99% of the population, because that is what is running the MSME sector of the whole nation, the agriculture sector, the service sector, the main three sectors which are contributing to the GDP.
Right.
So if mediation sort of goes across India,
sure,
and spreads like wildfire,
yeah.
Why I said my only question mark will come of getting the infrastructure ready, right, to meet the demand of mediation once mediation becomes mandatory.
Sure.
And that is where infrastructure means you will be needing places for mediation.
Agreed.
The existing courts can be converted.
Right.
Then you would be needing quality mediators. Then, as your idea was, if we can involve the lawyers,
right,
that would be a great source of mediation.
Right.
Of sort of getting mediators, because the reason being why, the moment the government makes it mandatory, automatically the requirement of a lawyer to go as per legal system will reduce.
Right.
Since I have to go for mediation. So right, these same very lawyers can do mediation.
Right.
The only issue from their point of view is they might not get paid the same fees. That's all.
Which in any case goes in the favor of the parties, because they also are saddled with a huge cost. So at least that's the party which gets benefit. So got that. So sir, you must be already using to an extent a mediation or its principles in the disputes within your organization. Going forward, do you see that with these interactions like what we are having today, it will really give some extra impetus, some extra sports to this entire?
Yes, it will. And I think you should also talk to the law ministry.
Right.
Sure. People. And you should also talk to some of the retired judges of the High Court.
Sure.
Because I remember ex-Justice A.K. Sikri, I think he has now retired. He was the one who gave this idea that it should be made mandatory,
right,
for mediation before the High Court admits the case. So I remember him saying that on the mic, and that is where I got the idea from, that what he is saying makes sense, because that is the only way people will have to look at mediation.
Sure.
So there is no question of having workshops for them.
Right.
Then you will need workshops on the process of mediation.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Like you did when the IBC came out.
Yeah. Right.
So you will need those kind of workshops.
Sure.
But mediation, they will have to go through.
Perfect, sir. So the last bit.
And that will also improve India's ranking of ease of doing business tremendously.
All eyes on that, sir. All eyes on that, because ease of doing business eventually would mean ease of living somewhere, right? So definitely the rankings will go, even in happiness index, we have been pretty low. So why not we add whatever we can do? So last bit, in an organization like yours, which is huge and you have so many employees and different departments, would it make sense and would you be open to a kind of not training, I would say, but an awareness session where HR, admin, legal and finance, these people are there because they interact with the outside world on behalf of the company. They are also looking at internal issues. So, for them to balance it out and have that awareness of a mediation or a principle, which helps them change their mindset and look at disputes differently.
I think that is a good idea, because if this concept that look, even dispute within your companies can be mediated.
Right, sir.
That will help to increase the harmony.
Absolutely.
To increase the bondage. I mean the bonding, not the bondage.
Yeah.
And the teamwork.
Great.
In the organization.
Right. So that's the whole intent that mediation be just not spoken. It should be starting, like, to get absorbed, to be understood the way it needs to be understood, and then gets applied, because it needs to evolve. And the whole object of us, people who we are all working towards is, we need to change the mindset of looking at disputes. To the extent we can prevent, great. If we can't prevent, then we need to be able to resolve, at the earliest. So I think that's great. So lovely, sir. Thanks for the amazing insight.
Just one comment before I close.
Yeah.
In mediation, once people's problems start getting resolved faster,
right,
it will spread like the need of the mobile phone spread.
Great, sir. Absolutely.
Why? Because that is the need of a human being, that dispute should be settled.
Right. Absolutely.
Disputes are getting settled tick, tick, fast, fast, fast through mediation.
Right.
Not all of them.
Not all of them. Absolutely. Agreed.
Out of 100, even if 65, 70 get settled, majority get settled.
Yeah.
You will find the happiness index which you talked about, that
Absolutely.
will go up tremendously.
Absolutely.
Because judicial reforms are greatly needed in India.
Right.
You can't fight cases for 30, 40 years. You can't have people in, jail for 20 years and still there is no trial.
Absolutely. So
they are still under a trial. You cannot have so much vacancies in lower courts, so much vacancies in higher courts of the judges.
Right.
Where will you get timely judgments?
Absolutely, sir.
Cases are being adjourned for flimsy reasons. 150 cases get listed to one judge. How much the poor man, he comes to case 44 and then he says all other cases adjourned to next date.
Right,
again, he wait for 2-3 months.
Absolutely. So
these problems have, I know these problems are practical and they are very, very irritating.
Agreed. So one stone, two birds, as they say, but here we are saying using a stone of mediation and trying to kill too many birds together. That's the intent. Harmony, happiness, ease of doing business, prevention of disputes, and with the changing mindset. On one side, we are saying resolving the disputes. I'm saying with the changing of mindset, we'll be able to reduce the disputes by themselves.
Absolutely.
People won't even want to get into a dispute because they'll start looking at the things differently. It's
Absolutely.
all about relationships at the end. So great.
And being in today's technology, India will fire 360 degrees.
Absolutely, sir. So that'll be a motivator. Lovely, sir. So amazing. Thank you for the insight. Thank you for the time. And with a contribution from people like you, it will be definitely a big booster for us. Great, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Pleasure.